The stubbornness is what amazes me about this gospel. We have this rich man and we have his brothers, and they seem to have the wrong idea about what it means to live according to God's law. But what's amazing is how many warnings and how strong those warnings could be, and they still will not wake up and change their mind. This rich man, interesting how we don't get the name of the rich man in the gospel, but we do get the name of the poor man, Lazarus, right? This rich man has Lazarus, who is this constant reminder to him every single day that you're supposed to live charitably. And the rich man, throughout his entire life, just never picks up on that. And then he says, okay, from the fires of hell, he calls out to Abraham and says, I've got 5 brothers. Can I go warn them? And he doesn't get no for an answer. What he gets is they're not going to be convinced by you, right? They have Moses and the prophets. If they're not going to believe them, they're also not going to believe if you come back from the dead and haunt them. Like, even that won't be enough to get them to believe. What produces that level of stubbornness? What produces that level of an unwillingness to change and to believe the truth? Because I think we would all like to avoid that, right? Nobody wants to be so stubborn that they just can't listen to the truth. So, what are the qualities that are necessary? What virtues do we need to cultivate within ourselves to have an attitude of receptivity so that when we hear the truth, we believe it? One of the most important virtues we can have that enables us to listen to and to believe the truth is a willingness to change. A willingness to change. This is so essential because just about every truth out there requires us to change something about ourselves. If I'm driving down the road and the light turns red, that little nugget of truth forces me to change what I'm doing. I have to stop driving, hit the brakes, and come to a stop. There's a truth, and it changed the way I acted. If, God forbid, the fire alarm goes off, that's a nugget of truth that demands a response. We have to do something. We have to stand up and yell at the person who pulled the fire alarm. No, you would leave the building, right? I have to say that this is being recorded. You leave the building when the fire alarm goes off, right? Okay. So those are small examples. There are bigger examples that get a little bit more personal too, right? Especially when we talk about moral truths, truths of morality, okay? What's right and what's wrong. The moment I believe something, I have to change the way that I live. Some of these truths make demands about how we should live. And for some people, that's a little bit scary. And for many people, if we don't have this docility, if we don't have a willingness to change the way that we live, what we do is we only believe the truths that are easy for us to live out. The rich man didn't want to change the way that he lived. He liked his lavish lifestyle. Maybe he was so stingy he didn't want to give a little bit of help to this poor man. Or maybe he was afraid of associating with the poor man, and maybe his friends or his 5 brothers would laugh at him for helping this poor Lazarus at his doorstep. Whatever it may be, he did not want to change the way that he lived. And so he did not hear the truth. And his 5 brothers did not want to change the way that they lived. And so they were not receptive to the truth. Sometimes we think that truth and knowledge, it's all about just how much I read or how much I study or how much I memorize. Well, we could read all the books in the world, but if we don't have a willingness to change, the only things we're going to believe are the things that we're already living or the easy things, the simple changes in our life. Okay, so how do we become receptive to the truth? First, we need to have a willingness to change. The other thing we need to have is We shouldn't be afraid of negative emotions because sometimes those also come as a result of the truth. We shouldn't be afraid of those. I don't normally watch hockey, but I was very invested in the championship these last couple weeks. I was cheering for Team USA all the way. Was anybody else watching? We played Canada twice. We beat Canada the first time in Canada, and then we played them again in the United States. And this was the championship game. And it was riveting. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a tie game when the game ended. And apparently in hockey, when you tie at the end of the match, you go into overtime and it's sudden death. It's just the next point wins. And the overtime, America was doing great. They were very aggressive. They were taking lots of shots at the goal. And then Canada kind of stuck away and they got their one shot in the goal and made it. And in that instant, we lost the game and there was no overturning it. And you know what my first reaction was? Denial. There's no way we could have lost the game that quickly. I was so invested. We were doing so well. How could it be over in this single instant? I couldn't see it. I wasn't willing to accept it. Surely we get another chance. Maybe it didn't actually go into the net. Maybe the refs were wrong. Maybe there's a penalty that was overlooked. There's no way, okay? That's a truth that came with a lot of hard emotions for me. And I was consoled by two things. Is number one, it was just a great game. There was tremendous athleticism on both sides. Both teams played their hearts out, and that was comforting to me. And I can still fall back on Ohio State winning the national championship. But that's just another simple example, right? When truths come with bad emotions, our first response is let's deny it. Let's pretend like it didn't happen or find some way around it. And our fear of these negative emotions, either for ourselves or for other people, oftentimes leads us to simply deny the truth. And this is something that the Catholic Church runs up against a lot, because the Catholic Church has one of the strictest moral codes of any religion. It is the most merciful and forgiving of any religion as well. But the church makes no compromises in morality, whether it be for pro-life issues or transgenderism issues or all of these different things. Why is this so difficult for the church? It's because the church and the culture have two different philosophies. The culture says what's right and what's wrong is determined by whose feelings you hurt. Morality is determined by whose feelings get hurt. This is not the way the church thinks. It never was. The church says morality has to do with what is true and what is false, and what is right and what is wrong. That is what determines morality. And the church is aware that sometimes that produces difficult and painful emotions in people. And this is why we need to remember something. It is always okay for us to speak the truth, even if it hurts some people. But the truth has to be spoken with love. The truth has to be spoken with an attitude where we say, we want what is best for the person that we are speaking to. We are never doing wrong in speaking the truth as long as we are speaking with love, with an attitude of, I want what is best for you. I want you to flourish. The thing about this rich man in the gospel, right? He's so closed to the truth until he's suffering. Why is that? All of a sudden, he understands, oh, I did something wrong, right? He gets it now. Why does he understand it? It's because the suffering that came from believing his lies ended up being more painful than the suffering that comes from believing the truth. And that's what finally opened up his heart. There's one other thing, one other attitude that is really important for believing the truth. And it's very simple. It's just believing that the truth is important. If we just sit back and let the culture teach us, the culture is going to teach us that what the Kardashians are doing right now is supremely important. Or what Taylor Swift's last tweet was really important. The gospel tells us that the truth is what's most important. That we should be willing to make sacrifices for the truth. In some cases, we should be willing to die for the truth. Because what does Jesus say? He says, I am the truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And when we honor the truth and believe the truth and make sacrifices for the sake of the truth, we are honoring and believing and sacrificing for and loving Jesus Christ. We are worshiping God by honoring the truth. And that is what we are called to do as Christians. When we come here to this church and we worship God in the scriptures, we worship God in the Eucharist, and we go out into the world and we worship God by believing and honoring what is true and by rejecting what is false. Because Jesus Christ is the way and the truth and the life, and nothing comes before him. Amen?